I was working my regular shift as a construction worker down at the site, and the sun was beating down on us like there was no tomorrow. It was hot, real hot, and all I could think about was that coffee break we were gonna get. We were all gathered around, talking about the usual stuff, sports, the weather, and the latest gossip. There was this guy I'd never seen before, just sort of standing around, looking at us like he was planning something. He was wearing dirty jeans and a raggedy old jacket, not like the rest of us in our hard hats and vests. I didn't pay him much mind at first. I figured maybe he was looking for a job or something, but then, I noticed something strange. He kept glancing around like he was searching for something. His eyes were darting here and there, checking out the construction site like it was a treasure hunt. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something off about him, so, I nudged Dave, one of the older guys on the crew, and asked him if he'd seen the new guy. Dave scratched his head and said he hadn't, but he didn't seem too concerned. Probably just some drifter looking for a handout, he said, but as the days went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That guy was always lurking around, what China us work. He didn't talk to anyone, just kept to himself, like he had a secret. And he was spending a lot of time near the materials and tools. One night, I decided to stay late, just to see what that guy was up to. I hid behind some steel beams and watched as he sneaked into the site. He started grabbing stuff, tools, copper wires, even some heavy machinery parts. I couldn't believe it. He was stealing from us right under our noses. I called the authorities, and they arrived quick. I watched as they nabbed the guy, handcuffing him without a fight. Turns out, he'd been wanted for a whole string of construction site thefts all across town. He'd been selling the stolen stuff for a pretty penny. The whole thing was a shocker. I mean, here we were, just regular folks working hard to make a living, and this guy was sneaking around, stealing from us. It was a slow buildup of suspicion, like watching a crime thriller unfold right before my eyes. We later found out the guy had a history of this kind of thing, and he'd been lurking around a construction site, planning his heist for weeks. It was a real wake-up call.
What I saw up there on that construction site, it's something I can't forget. It was just another day, steel beams and concrete blocks everywhere, me doing my job as a construction worker. After break time, I was heading back up to the 30th floor. The boss had a list of things for us to check, make sure everything was safe and secure. So, I'm walking up those stairs, taking it slow. It's a long climb up there, and I ain't in no rush. When I reached the 30th floor, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a man standing on the edge, looking down. My heart started pounding, and my gut twisted up. He was wearing a faded old jacket, like he'd been living rough. His hair was all tangled. And his eyes, they looked empty, like he had nothing left to live for. I ain't no hero, and I sure as hell ain't a therapist, but I knew I couldn't just walk away. I yelled out to him, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing up here? You gotta step back from that edge." My voice was shaky, and I could feel the sweat dripping down my back. The man didn't even look at me. He just kept staring down, like he didn't hear a word I said. I was panicking, not knowing what to do next. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and told them there was a guy up here on the 30th floor who looked like he was gonna jump. Time crawled by, and it felt like hours before I heard sirens in the distance. The guy was edging closer to the edge, like he was ready to take that leap into the abyss. I was praying the authorities would get here in time. Finally, I saw a bunch of people rushing in, cops and firefighters, all running up those stairs like their lives depended on it. They were shouting at the man, trying to talk him down, but he just kept inching closer to the edge. I felt helpless, watching it all unfold. The authorities had ropes and harnesses, and they were moving slowly, trying to get close enough to grab him without scaring him off. It was a tense standoff, like a scene out of a movie, only this was real life, and then, in one heart-stopping moment, the guy stepped over the edge. My breath caught in my throat, and I thought it was all over. But those brave responders acted fast. They lunged forward, grabbing onto him, fighting to keep him from falling. It was a struggling, desperate tussle, but they managed to pull him back to safety. The guy was crying, sobbing like I've never seen anyone cry before. The authorities did their best to comfort him. I watched it all unfold, a silent witness to a man's darkest hour. I don't know what happened to that man afterward, but I'll always remember the day I saw a life hanging on the edge of a 30th floor building.
It was about 10 years ago when this strange and scary incident happened to me. I had just finished a long day at work and was tired, eager to get home and relax. I remember it was a chilly autumn evening, and the streets were empty as I walked towards my apartment. As I was passing by a construction site near my apartment complex, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. There was a man standing there, just watching me. He was wearing a dark coat and a hat pulled low over his eyes, making it hard to see his face. At first, I thought he might be a worker on a smoke break, but something about him felt off. I quickened my pace, hoping to put some distance between us. But when I glanced back, he was following me, keeping the same distance. My heart started racing as I realized he was deliberately tailing me. I told myself I was just being paranoid, but my gut feeling told me otherwise. I reached my apartment building and hurried inside, locking the door behind me. I peeked through the window and saw the man lingering outside, still watching. I couldn't make out any features, just the outline of his figure in the dim light. Terrified, I called the police and explained the situation. They assured me they would send someone over, but by the time they arrived, the man had vanished. They searched the area, but there was no trace of him. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I'd see glimpses of the mysterious man on my way to work, always at a distance. I began to fear for my safety and even considered moving. But then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, the sighting stopped. Years passed, and I tried to put the incident behind me. Until one day, I saw a news report. They had captured a dangerous criminal who had been on the run for years. It was the same man, the one who had followed me all those years ago. I couldn't believe it, the chills ran down my spine. The news said he had escaped from the authorities, just like he had that night when he was following me. It sent shivers down my spine, realizing how close I had come to danger without even knowing it. I still can't explain why he targeted me or how he managed to evade the police for so long, but I thank my lucky stars that I'm safe today.